All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Britt Allen, and welcome to Helicon West, our first of the open mic summer series. Our mission statement. Helicon West is a live reading series that brings published local writers to read alongside community members in an open, uncensored forum. In order to promote the voice of every community member and democratic ideals, we honor all levels of skill, ability, and craft. In addition to featuring published authors to give the literary arts more exposure in Cache Valleys and the surrounding areas, we invite and celebrate aspiring writers from every walk of life to find and share their voices with us. We are committed to the causes of inclusion, accessibility, and representation in our writing community. Helicon West operates on the territory of the northwestern band of the Shoshone Nation, whose people have been living, working, and residing on this land from time immemorial. We acknowledge that these lands carry the stories of these nations and their struggles for survival and identity. We recognize elders past and present as peoples who have cared for and continue to care for the land. In offering this acknowledgement, we affirm Indigenous self-governance history, experiences, and resiliency of the Native people who are still here today. I would like to thank our sponsors, the Bear River Heritage Area, the Logan Library, Sugar House Review, the Utah Humanities, our matron saint, Star Culver, and the Cache Valley Center for the Arts for our summertime venue. If you would like to read during the open mic portion of the evening, which you all should, and I believe you have all been properly harassed at this point as well, but if you change your mind and you want to sign up to read, I will have it right up here, up front with me. Everyone on the open mic sheet will have up to, where am I? Oh, for those on Zoom, I don't think there's anyone on Zoom, but if someone comes into Zoom, they should raise their virtual hands. Okay. Each reader will have up to 7 minutes of time to read for us, and after 7 minutes, they will be politely clapped off. All of our Helicon West events are recorded and then posted to our Helicon West YouTube channel. If you do not wish to be recorded but would like to read during the open mic, please let me know, give me put a note by your name, and I can pause the recording. You will still show up on the screen, but that's just so that people on Zoom can see you. I'll press pause on the recording portion. Helicon West is made possible by our generous sponsors and the community we serve to help us stay in person until the new Logan Library is built, not to mention caffeinated. There are a couple ways to donate. We've got a QR code on our little bookmarks over there. We've got a pocket change jar, and your participation really is a form of like contributing to our well-being as well. So do it. Okay, so our readers tonight are you all for the first open mic of the summer. So I'm going to sit down and I will read you off 3 persons at a time. Our first 3 readers tonight will be, well, actually, I'm going to scratch that. I'm going to go down to 2. Welcome, Michael. All right, our first 2 readers of the night are Diane Hardy and Jay Payne. Yeah.
No, I first because I signed in on the number 2 side. That's all right. I used to come here all the time and I used to write that. You know, so you know that. Anyway, it's better this way. There you go. And I kept wanting to come back, but I didn't have, I'm not writing, I haven't been writing for a long time. And I couldn't seem to do it. And so finally I decided that I needed to come and maybe read something that I wrote a long time ago, because I still feel the same way about it and I still like it. It's just that I'm not writing right now, so I thought it'd be a good thing. This was published in an old magazine called Parody, and it was back in, I don't know when, but I wrote it when I lived out in Roosevelt, Utah, and Star, you'll be interested in all this. I was taking a class from Ken Brewer, who came out there every weekend and gave us lessons in writing. And he really inspired me, as I'm sure he did you too, right? Okay. Yeah. At the time, I was really grappling with where I stood on religion. And guess what? I'm not grappling anymore. I'm very sure of it now. But this poem reflects how I feel. This is a story about the Bible. A story. Which you know that book, right? Lot. He left her there, a pillar of salt, to the mountains he did flee, with 2 virgin daughters, scrambling behind just as God said it should be. 'Twas a cave in the hills they did find, a place where they could stay. Lot left the gals to tidy up, while he went out to pray. Poor daddy, one gal said to the other, this really is quite a plight. Our mother's a statue of salt back there. With whom can dad spend the night? I think it's my call to do the Lord's work. It's my right. I'm older than you. When he drinks this wine, he'll lie with me. You can have him when I get through. An orgy raged on the mountain that night. Each gal played her part to the letter. In drunken splendor, Lot climaxed it all, saying, wife, you're getting better and better. Then the Lord looked down and said to Lot, look, these daughters you've defiled. You're righteous and you're clever too. Through each will come a child. This story is one not told in church. In the Bible, you'll have to look. Revelation, scripture from the pen of God. It's the world's first dirty book. Yeah.
It'll be best just to do it from the wrist, I think. Oh. Yep.
Okay.
Take it.
Now we go. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been spending a lot of time with my grandparents, and my grandmother has told me all the stories from her childhood. Then after, she was like, yeah, my sister Joey and we were gonna write these stories down. And Joey was apparently the writer, but unfortunately, Joey never actually wrote the stories. So I've taken it upon myself to incorporate some of my grandmother's stories into my poetry. So this poem is titled Granny's Cat. Here, Katie, the little girl would call, but only softly, as not to disturb her father. Inside, slumped in his chair, chin cradled above his collarbone, whiskey bottle about to slip from his grip, like life sometimes does for certain creatures. Then the stray, understanding the need for stealth, would tiptoe out from behind the hedge to consume the offerings, scraps of chicken wing and neck. How eager he always was to consume what the girl had refused, until one morning when he fell asleep under Mr. Miller's Chevy and was smeared into the driveway as the man left for work. The girl walked past the remains on her way to school, glancing only briefly before leaving behind what was never hers, because with no more cat to feed the scraps, she knew not much would change. Her mother would task her with baking the chicken, her siblings would devour breast and thigh, her father would stumble in drunk, and she would be left to pick at paltry meat and oily skin.
Yeah, my turn. Beautiful. Okay, our next 2 readers. Scoot this. Okay, yeah, you can stand here. You can grab it like Jay did. I'm not Nathan Dan. He's the one who's fancy about it. I'm sorry, Chad. I'm sorry. He looks really upset right now. I'm just kidding. Our next two readers will be Rex, Lambert, and Tim.
I think I'll just use my opera voice and not worry about that. I'd like to read 4 very short poems tonight. 3 of them are recently written. This first one, however, I probably wrote 25, 30 years ago, but for whatever reason decided I liked it. Right? So I sent it off, and lo and behold, it got published in 2020 in the Taj Mahal Review. And that sounds weird because the Taj Mahal Review is actually published out of Allahabad, India. But it's probably appropriate because this memory that I've written about here was a memory from my high school years in India. And it's called A Still Photo of the Spirit, Shimla, 1965. The students have left for the summer. The forested campus is quiet. The Mother Superior greets me in the dark, sweet-scented chapel. She leads me into the garden for the annual school teacher's portrait. The sisters are posed in formation beneath the white marble Christ. I frame them all in the viewfinder and wait for the camera to shutter. Under my feet, the cool Shimla hills break on the north shore of India. Shimla is the mountain, or was the mountain summer retreat for the British Raj when India was a colony. So it's a beautiful place. It's up in the high hills of the Himalayas. And yeah, this was based on a memory, basically, of that time. I can get to the next one here. This one was published in 2020 as well. Summer 2020 issue of Dovetails. I don't know if anybody's heard of Dovetails. It's a Writing for Peace literary journal for the arts. It's published out of, I think, Colorado Springs, Colorado. And the theme for that issue was First Amendment rights. And so this poem is about that. It's called Requiem for a Dream. And it was written for George Floyd. Today I wear the white skin I was born in as a coat of shame. My equivocation ebbing as his knee pressed on your neck. My colorized inheritance, now truth in black and white. Your life's equivalence to loot, your breath to burning buildings, the bitter gall of bigotry still here. And my 2 brothers, Derek's Cain to George's Abel, one alive, the other dead, a dream snuffed out for justice in this life. Those kind of polemic poems are hard to write, but for whatever reason, and I'm not good at them, so, but this one just came from the heart. This next one is a micro poem. I never knew what a micro poem was, but I guess they're in vogue nowadays. So I responded to a contest that was put on by the Goodyear, Arizona Commission for the Arts and Culture, And the challenge was to do a 40-word poem that had to do with the desert Southwest. And anyway, I won $100 on this and got it published. So it's called First Light, November 1st. A sleepless night argues for change. The blanching blue moon pillows my head, nimbus to the rising day. Morning in our desert dawns this way, as cool, white, snow-blinding light. And I am summer weary, ready for winter. And the last one, was published last year, 2021, in that same Dovetails journal. This was the 10th anniversary issue. And the challenge on this one, or the theme, I guess, what you could say was letters from the self to the world. So I guess whatever is on your heart, how you'd like to change the world. And this was my take. The title is actually a question, wishful thinking. Let old men fight the wars. It's their wisdom got us here. Let women rule the world instead. It's they who bear the future. Let young ones seek adventure in dreams we should not hinder. Let all the able-bodied work. It's the price we pay for living. May my door remain unlocked to strangers who at night might knock. May all of us show mercy to the homeless and the hungry. May healthy care for helpless ungrudgingly as blessings. May your gifts be humbly used. None of us deserving. Let my life be sacrificial. Waste it not on just myself. Let not your gold become your God. Share liberally your lucre. May the faults I find in folks remind me always of my own. And may your grace erase all hurt, for the mirror is unforgiving, friends. Thank you.
Yes.
Camera off for this one.
Okay.
I really can just speak from here. Y'all can hear me. Okay. Our next 3 readers will be Star, Millie, and Michael Skillings.
Hey, Brett.
Yes.
I want to break it into all.
Oh, I got plenty. Okay, so you just.
Oh, just put me down.
Can do.
We'll still go 3, but next time we can do.
Actually, I think I ruined it now.
No. Oh no, we're fine. We're fine. We'll do 2.
It'll be coming around. When you're on there, everything will be good. Oh, it's so nice to see you all. I'll use this. So Sean's front room writing group, but this time Millie was in charge, and we did this lovely Zoom meeting, and the prompt was to choose a line from an assortment of first lines that Millie gave us to start writing. And my line was, for a long time, I went to bed early. For a long time, I had no dreaming. I got up at 5 a.m. and felt the blankness of refreshing sleep, nothing tinging my mood with what had gone on behind my eyes as I slipped under the deep, dark velvet of unconsciousness. I was a blank page until morning light, pen in hand, eager to fill it up beyond the luscious metaphor, the lines tumbling down one upon the other, top of the list to the bottom, each exciting task in my day checked off before that magic stroke of 9 p.m., kids asleep by 8, husband passed out drunk in his lazy boy or working late at the cafe, so I could slip into the bedroom alone, slide under the covers, and sink into blessed oblivion. For a long time before that, I had gone to bed late, but I still had to get up early, get to my shift at the cafe by 5, work until 2 p.m., drive home to the kids who were babies back then to do all the things while my husband was missing. By late afternoon, I'd hear voices in my head, people calling on the phone, but there was no one. Babysitters came and went, the kids like someone else's, not mine. I hallucinated, but I never dreamed. For a long time, when I was a child and then a bride, I dreamed the same dream every night, the dream of falling, the falling so frightening my heart nearly stopped.
In my sleep, I taught myself to fly instead. In flying, I could step myself down onto mountains, tall buildings, lower myself to landings and land without injury. For a long time in my middle years, I went to bed and dreamed myself saved. And now I'm nearly old and having dreams in which I do not fall. And though I don't remember them, the dreams, I feel them. All day they hold me in their power and I like it. For a long time, I've gone to bed early. Sometimes I sleep as if I'll keep on dreaming right into my next life. 2 weeks after my friend's stroke, I am thinking of her constantly, her thoughts trapped inside her brain, her body stopped from any movement except with help from therapists, devices, assists, her devoted husband. She is slowly, gradually trying to return to her athletic, poetic former self, and I worry about losing her the way we lost another friend all those years ago to an illness that took her from us forever, splintering our group. Now this new and painful splintering that follows on the heels of a harrowing pandemic has taken the poetry out of my soul. I wrote last night of dreaming, and then I dreamed of losing my sweetheart, falling through ice, disappearing before my eyes. It was the worst, the most futile and bereft of any dream, as there in the back of my mind is my friend falling to the floor in an instant, gone just like that. I was traveling in my dreams last night, meeting new people, finding new places to hike, looking out over a lake with grassy banks and a well-used path to my destination. I knew it would take days to get there, so why not get in the car and drive? Such a joy to set out as though I were young again, with the courage to be alone again for miles in unknown territory. In dreams, I have felt like this in good, long dreams.
That was wonderful, Star. That wasn't so fair. I should have skipped a couple lines. Not signed up right behind you. Brittany, would you pause the recording for me too? Yep. Okay.
Well, I've read a few times, and it's always something a lot different from what's usually shared. And so with this one, it's still, I only really have one story I've ever written, just a palette swap each time. And this one is just another palette swap, but I tried in a really amateurish way to put a more Helicon West bent on it. So I guess we'll see. I call it The Spirit of Siena. The Arcturne Empire fell on June 9th, 4066. After a long retreat, the Royal Armada made a final desperate stand against the Federation in low orbit over the capital world, Arcturus. For weeks, the navies pounded each other like hammers. Hundreds of thousands on both sides were lost. Finally, the Imperial line shattered. Federal Marines reached the surface. Within an hour, they leveled the capital city and exterminated the royal bloodline. Vice Marshal Wilhelm surrendered at gunpoint on behalf of the entire remaining armada in an elaborate ceremony held among the ruins of the Imperial Palace. Officially, the empire was no more. In reality, the defeat on Arcturus was only the beginning of the empire's death throes. Many worlds refused to recognize Wilhelm's surrender. One such world was Siena, a backwater on the very fringe of the empire's former territory. Under no one's authority but their own, the people of Siena mustered what meager naval forces they could and waited for the federal war machine to arrive. When the Reavers finally came, they came with battleships and destroyers and a swarm of starfighters that sparkled like fireworks in the Siena sky as they emerged from hyperspace. They dove toward the planet like piranhas, and from the planet's surface rose the final defenders of Siena. They numbered only 1 frigate, 2 corvettes, and barely 4 squadrons of obsolete space fighters, but they shone like angels, freshly painted in proud imperial white, unsullied by the grime of defeat or cowardice. The fleets collided. One by one, the angels fell, bathed in brilliance as their reactors breached, or streaking like meteors as they sink into the atmosphere. The huddled masses on the surface bore witness to their glory. But even among the heroes, one stood above the rest. They tore into the federal line with wild, graceful abandon, throwing their starfighter through wide loops and narrow spirals. The afterimage of their blazing engines traced a twisting ribbon among the federal starfighters. Their lasers snapped, each shot finding its mark. Those who watched saw the way they danced through the battle, this unknown pilot flying an unmarked starfighter, untouched and unhindered by the destruction all around, and named them the Spirit of Siena. After the battle, it would be reported that the Spirit of Siena destroyed no fewer than 38 federal starfighters. The Spirit finally fell when it danced too close to a battlecruiser's flat guns. Shrapnel gutted their fighter's reactor, but did not cause it to explode. The Spirit's engines fell cold and silent, and they tumbled away into the black, unable to even stop their spinning. Eventually, they vanished from all sensors. The Sienans fought to the last man, but it was ultimately futile. The Federals landed to inflict the justice of victors and the mercy of monsters. They could not break everything, even with ships and tanks and power armor. On top of a short, bald hill, far away from any city or spaceport, some forgotten remembrancer raised a shrine to the Spirit of Siena. 3 large flat stones stacked atop one another. It is seldom visited, but the people of Siena take great comfort in knowing that it stands. No one knows what became of the Spirit of Siena. Perhaps they drifted into a shipping lane and a passing cargo hauler rescued them. Or perhaps they still tumble through space, their pristine frozen corpse still strapped into their flight seat. And no one knows who they were. Some say a man, others a woman. Some say a noble trained at the greatest universities of the old empire. Others say a commoner who learned to fly racing propeller planes through Siena's desert canyons. It does not matter. What matters is what they taught, what they still teach to all the orphans of the empire. When the Federation came for Siena, no amount of skill or bravery could have staved them off. Yet the Spirit fought anyway. Indeed, they fought more fiercely and beautifully than any warrior before or since. Because sometimes when defeat is certain, the act of fighting is a victory unto itself. Some say that if the Spirit of Siena had been at Arcturus, the empire would never have fallen. Or then again, perhaps not.
All right, anyone else getting inspired to come sign up? Because I did. The next 2 readers will be myself, followed by Jesse Walker. I wasn't planning on reading tonight, but so I've got 3 poems that tonight has made me think of. The first is about my dog, and then the second 2 are about my grandmothers, one of whom is still living. She's my neighbor and my bestie, and one of whom I also love. Like, it's weird. It's like one grandma's my bestie. No, I love both my grandmas. One is alive and one has passed away. That's the big distinction. But this first one is about my dog, who is very well, except mad at me because he's not here with me. But It's titled Ghosts. Of course, I'm having nightmares. It is April. My heart is clicking away like knitting needles, or the dog's nails on the tile as he sniffs me out. He isn't big enough to snuff my demons and doesn't comprehend my scent of fright, steaming alongside the coffee and tighter than my bathrobe. I wonder if the visions he has at night get carried around all day, tucked between molars like a chew toy, or roadkill rotting his gums. But if he nightmares, it doesn't show. In the sun's first light, his brown eyes shine free of ghosts. He looks at me long, so I know. And okay, then my next poem is Worrystone. In my gone grandmother's jewelry box, beneath the pearl strands and yellowed ivory, was a smooth gray stone the size of a thumb, a common rock nested among my grandmother's treasure, a blinding tenderness. A worrystone, my aunt calls it when I ask if anyone had seen this before. It must have worked, have dissolved hundreds of her worries away for it to be kept in such a velvet place, to be kept at such distance from her pocket after my grandfather passed away. I wonder who and where she was when she picked this garden variety rock up, if my mother was any more than a seed when her mother tucked corn silk behind an ear, frowned at the earth until she spotted the gray egg to soothe her, held it to her chest like the hand of a granddaughter. And my last poem is What She Does Remember. Tomorrow, my grandma turns 79. Today, my grandma asks what day it is, when my husband and I are finally going to get married, if her birthday is tomorrow, what day it is. Yesterday, my grandma lost her eyesight, her hearing, her body's insulin independence. She lost ease between the joints of her fingers and her knees. She lost reading. Yesterday, my grandma lost her way home from church. She lost her driver's license and her one-eyed pug. She lost another sister. Yesterday, my grandma let my dad move into her second bedroom, and we got to sleep over every other weekend. We got our own bags of popcorn and $2 for two things at the dollar store. Yesterday, my grandma came home to a spotless house and told her two sons, "That's great, but I don't have any money." Yesterday, my grandma got a positive pregnancy test and kicked her cheating husband out of the house. Yesterday, my grandma was the daughter whose days were caring for a mother dying of MS, gently pushing her mother's throat up instead of down, the right way to help a helpless person to swallow. Yesterday, her mother died at 52. Yesterday, my grandma didn't move to California with the love of her life, the boy with the big laugh in the dark movie theater, even though he loved her and even asked. Yesterday, my grandma dropped out of high school. Yesterday, the 7th grade teacher lifted my grandma out of her desk, forced her to stand at the front of the class to participate in the spelling bee, and asked through gritted teeth for her to spell I. Can't do it, my grandma spat and went back to her seat. Yesterday it rained. My grandmother and great aunt grabbed their raincoats, raced out the door and into the streets and puddles, braids swinging, screeching bits of musicals, laughing and splashing all across town to her grandmother's house, where Grandma McBride had already stoked the coal stove to hang their coats over, and Grandpa McBride peeled apples in one long slice. Thank you.
Right.
at the Cache County Senior Center, which has a writers group.
Does
And
it?
It does. And when I started working there, I learned that I was in charge of it. And so I started attending, and week after week I went, and the function of the writers group is that everyone brings something to share of theirs every week, kind of like this. And I went week after week, supervising and having nothing to read. And so one day I got there a little bit early and I wrote something that I could share. And so this is that. It is a short little autobiographical experience from about 20 years ago. That summer, I was working on a wilderness reserve in Mendocino County, California. The first of 2 summers I'd spent there. It was a beautiful place. Old growth Douglas fir, redwoods, and the South Fork of the Eel River, named after the lampreys that spawned there. I was an undergraduate at Berkeley. In those 2 precious summers, I lived on that wilderness reserve conducting ecological research for Dr. Mary Power, a professor of community ecology there at UCB. The summer of 2001, I was conducting behavioral research on juvenile steelhead trout, Oncorhynchus micus, the same species as rainbow trout, but with a slightly different appearance, physiology, and habits. We were studying the effects of river sedimentation on their foraging behavior. Basically, we wanted to know whether their diet would be impacted when clear cutting and fires affecting trees, which stabilize soil higher up in the watershed, led to the rivers getting silted out and the interstices of the rocks at the river bottom got filled with mud. So my job was to sit on the bank of the river and watch fish, taking occasional notes on their behavior in one of the most beautiful places in the world. And I got paid for it. One of those days, while I was busy scribbling in my notebook, reporting on the fish's attempts, starting with the small bugs in the water that made up their food, a bear made an appearance. Coming from the forest on the far side of the river to my right, I could hear it before it appeared. It came out from the woods, paused for a moment while it looked my direction, and carried on upstream after realizing I was no threat. I held my breath. It was an adult black bear, a lot bigger than me. It was about 40 feet or so away. A couple seconds distance for that bear to run if it wanted to, but it didn't. It moved on, and as it did, I realized I could breathe again. And then, from the same woods from which the bear had emerged, 2 more followed. Cubs. Babies, cuteness. And I again found myself not breathing. Never come between a mother bear and her cubs, they say. And they meandered down to the far side of the river, straight across from me, maybe 30 feet. The mother bear was at least 100 feet downriver at this point. I felt very, very exposed. The mother bear was occupied digging into the far bank of the river, and the cubs, the 2 played in the water, jumping, splashing each other, and loving their precious little ursine lives. I was entranced. Fish rapidly forgotten that there was nothing in the world as enchanting as 2 baby bears playing in the river. Several minutes passed and I stayed still so as to both not scare the cubs away, as well as to help the mother bear forget about my presence closer to her babies than she was. They played. It was joyous, and they finished. Walked over to their mother, done with whatever she'd been doing. She scrambled up the hillside at the far bank of the river to my left and disappeared into the woods from whence she came. The cubs followed, and I went back to my fish. The story could stop there, but it doesn't. An hour or so later, fueled by the curiosity of scientific inquiry, I went over to where the mother bear had been so occupied with an exposed hillside earlier while her cubs played. It was swarming with yellow jackets, their hive so cruelly disturbed by the large mammalian carnivore digging into their nest. I was mildly perplexed and remained that way for several days. It was maybe 3 days later, a trail, perhaps a quarter mile from that location, when the answer came. A pile of wasp bodies. I'd seen a lot of piles of bear poop that summer, but none composed entirely of the mostly still intact corpses of stinging wasps. The bear had eaten them. And I, days later, had found the aftermath of that encounter after they'd served their purpose and provided, I guess, some kind of nutrition to Mama Bear. What a summer, what a life.
Oh, yeah. All right, our last two readers, unless someone else feels inspired, we've got Mr. Sean Anderson and Chad.
All right.
Okay, one of my favorite things about Helicon West is how fast the tone can change. So, heads up. Also, I was inspired by listening to Diane's poem about Lot's daughters, and I wrote one a couple years ago, so that's what I'm going to read. So you just get a lot about one of the most upsetting stories in the Bible. Enjoy. Mine is less tongue-in-cheek, and here we go. Inside your father's cave, you peel off the salty remains of your mother, the ash of Sodom. Your father calls you by your dead mother's name, the wine already muddling his thoughts, as you steel yourself and strip. Peel back this afternoon when God's messengers created commotion around your home. The city's men, hungry for angelic flesh, demanded to consume the divine. Your father refused, offered you instead. You wonder if your father will realize that you are not your mother, that you are still flesh and blood and agony. Your mother drifts on the air, pebbles of salt. Her death an act of God's mercy, an act of God's fury. She settles with the ash of Sodom, free from the husband who surrendered his daughters to satiate the rapists of Sodom, free from his God who won't intervene tonight. Your father fumbles with his own clothing, pain drunk, prepared to fuck the grief away. He will claim that he could not perceive your presence when your stomach swells with your own brother's son, who your father's ruthless God will love more than you. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Chad.
Yeah, I have three too. There's more red. Tim Red and Sean Red. So I'll come back just a this is a sort of about my mom. I was writing about a bunch of my relatives. My mom was she wasn't a great mom. And I loved her in spite of that when I was young, and then kind of resented her for it. And then just before she passed away, I kind of started to realize, you know, she had challenges too. So I've kind of settled in the middle. But this is kind of how she was during my early adulthood. And it's called Click the Download to the Reboot. Chad, hon, I know you're really busy, but I clicked the download to the reboot, and now my whole system is down. Call me. Every 4 or 5 years, Mom would perform this reappearing act. After bottoming out, she'd get sober, she'd get clean, buy a computer, and then the voicemails would begin. Everything, chat, everything's down. Mouse, printer, screen, CPU, and what do you call it? Tower. They're all down. She would emerge from somewhere, Arizona, Idaho, California, like a cat thrown into a lake and paddling to the shore. She'd shake off and tongue the water from her coat. All down, chat. File's gone. Call me, Kay. Oh, and I can't remember the go code. You know, the go code. What do you call it? Password. User code? You know, I don't know how to get into my directories, my downloads. Next time I promise I'll print them all out. So we'd go computer shopping. I'd be eager to help, but very slightly annoyed. skeptically proud of her, watching her closely. She'd be jittery on her best behavior, 19 or 20 days back into the program, trying again to finally finish off her real estate license or open that pet grooming business. Chad, honey, it's asking for my IP address or IP address. Is that my mailing address? Or is that like, if I don't have a PO box, or should I use the address I had when we first got the computer set up? Because we bought it before I moved, you know. It would be only a matter of 2 or 3 hours before the computer was down, as she put it, but really she was just confused about where to click, where not to click. So give me a call when you can right away, just to show me real quick how to download the directory again for the internet link, okay? Call me, I know you're busy, it's mom, thanks. And then 4 or 5 years later, just when she'd gotten the computer figured out, Go code printed, she'd click to download for the reboot on herself, delete 30 or 40 months of sobriety, her whole system would go down, and she'd go back out, and the voicemails would stop.
Thank you so much to everyone who read with us tonight and for everyone who listened to us tonight. It'd be weird if we were all just talking. Well, we are just talking to each other. Anyway, it'd be weird for me if nobody came. Thank you all for coming. Does anyone else want to read before we say goodnight? Okay, then I hope to see you all back here. The 4th Thursday in June. I think it's the 23rd. I will email you. I will email the whole list and let you know which day in June it is. You can also follow us on Facebook. I believe there's a Twitter that the Logan Library helps out with, and a WordPress blog as well. You can pretty well Google us and find something that looks like Helicon. Okay.
But nothing that is like Helicon.
But nothing is like Helicon. I'm not even like Helicon.
So you wear the shirt nicely.
And next time it's somewhere else.
Nope, in June it's here.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Yep. In July we'll be at a different location, but next month.
And it is the 23rd.
It's the 23rd of June, 7 p.m. right here. Please enjoy some coffee on your way out and be sure to drink it over the hardwood as much as possible. I know I should have said that in the beginning, and it's my fault. I accept liability.
Thank you, Brett.
You're welcome. Thank you.